All right, guys, welcome back. Again, my name is Scott Webb with C2C Sports Investment Group. You can follow me on Twitter at C2C Scott Webb. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about baseball. So this is what I'm good at. This is my specialty. This is what people follow me for. And I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the misnomers of baseball. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this video today. So let's talk about preseason because I used to play baseball when I was back in the day when I was younger, before I had a torn up shoulder. And these guys that are out there, and I even saw one of the handicappers the other day. He put it out there and he said, I can tell you who's going to play in every inning. Well, he can't tell you who's going to play in every inning, number one. And number two, not only can he not tell you who's going to play there, what would it matter? Because he doesn't know who they are. He doesn't know what they can do. He doesn't know what they're working on. He doesn't know what they're trying to accomplish. Spring training baseball, if you're betting spring training baseballs, that's up to you. I mean, that's what you do. As a guy that can tell you how baseball plays out and what goes on in the games, if you're winning those games, good for you. I mean, I'm happy that you're winning them, but that's not something that you should be really investing your time in. And you also should not be following anything in preseason except two things. You need to follow the injuries that happen and how they might affect the team once they break spring training camp. And then secondly, you want to follow how the prospects are doing. So maybe they're going to make the team. Maybe they can make an impact. Maybe somebody beats out a regular and they're gonna lose their job. Other than that, there's no value to spring training in a gambling sense. So I've been to the camps. I've been in the camps. And basically, the way that works in spring training is that the players, most of them, are working on something to make them a better player for when the games really count. They know they don't count in spring training. The players know they don't count in spring training. The managers know they don't count in spring training. So they're going to do lots of different things. So today, for example, the Boston Red Sox scored 13 runs. And they hit 3 home runs. So, that's something big news for the Boston Red Sox. However, the 3 guys that hit the home runs, they're not going to make the team. So does that tell you anything about the Red Sox? Well, in somebody's mind it might, but in my mind it doesn't tell you anything about what's going to happen come March 29th when the regular season starts. So just my 2 cents here on preseason baseball. You're not going to see much from me in lieu of those things. And if you guys are into that, I hope you do really well. I'm going to spend my time getting ready for March 29th. So talking about March the 29th and when the baseball season really starts, I think that there's a couple things we need to talk about. Number one, I wanted to talk about the divisions a little bit because the divisions are almost already set. So, I know they're going to play 162 games, and injuries can impact a lot of this stuff. So, over the course of the next, I don't know, 7 months, 8 months, we'll find out who's going to be there at the end. But ideally, you can almost project all these things already in terms of where they're going to be, except for one division. So let's spend a little bit of time on that one division, and that's going to be the American League East. And I think a lot of people think it's going to be between the Yankees and the Red Sox, and I think they're right. My opinion is the same way. It's the Yankees or the Red Sox. And I'm not as high on the Red Sox as a lot of people are. I have pulled up on my screen now baseball prospectus and what their projections for them are. And I was a little bit surprised at the gap. The gap is 7 games between the Yankees and the Red Sox for them. I use Fangraphs a lot, and Fangraphs gap is 1. My personal gap there is more like 5 or 6 as well. I think the Yankees are better. So, but when you look at all of the different other divisions in baseball, for example, they've got the Indians at 15 games better than the next team, and the Astros are 16 games better than the second place team. Washington Nationals are 10 games ahead. The Chicago Cubs are 8 to 10 games ahead. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 10 games ahead. So those projections really kind of put baseball in a sense of why are we even playing all the games? Let's just move them to October, and then let's put those better teams in there and see who's the best. Because that's when you really start to find the fun part of baseball, because these are some pretty elite teams that are playing at these levels right now, and it's a lot of who has the best players against the teams that are kind of building up to that with all the prospects that they have, and they're not really that competitive. However, getting into the playoffs is going to be something that we can talk about. In the American League, you're going to have either the Yankees or the Red Sox. They're going to be 1 and 2 in that league, and then you're going to run into whichever team doesn't win that division. They're going to be the wild card team. And then who's going to be the next wild card team? And I think that's going to be between two teams. That's going to be between the Minnesota Twins and the Los Angeles Angels. The Angels made some splashy moves this offseason. But if you remember back the last couple of years, 2 years ago, the splashy team, well, actually 3 years ago, the splashy team was the San Diego Padres. They made a lot of changes and did a lot of things, bought a lot of players. That didn't work out, so now they're scrapped all that stuff. 2 years ago, it was the Arizona Diamondbacks, and everybody thought they were going to be the greatest team. They didn't make the playoffs. And this year, now you're looking at the Los Angeles Angels doing the same thing in trying to revamp their team. They brought in a ton of different talent. They got a lot of players that are there, not even to mention the Japanese player that they signed. So over the course of looking at kind of history, I'm more apt to not think that the Los Angeles Angels are going to be the team. I'm more interested in what Minnesota does. I'm actually pretty impressed with that team right now. So, but when you're starting to look at those kind of values for this time of year, I think that's where some of the fun can be in terms of the discussions. In the National League, again, I think that you're looking at a lot that has to do with the Cubs, who have really improved. I think the Cubs are going to be a probably one of the more dominant teams. They play in a division where they have to play against St. Louis and they got to play against Milwaukee. So there's going to be a little bit of beat up of each other, but I really don't think that the Cubs are going to fall into sort of that really slow start that they had last year. So I think the Cubs are going to be a team to beat. I do like the Washington Nationals. They have one flaw, but other than looking at it from a perspective of they've got the pitching, they've got the relief pitching, and they've got the hitters, they just don't know how to win the big game at the end. That's their flaw. And if that's their flaw, maybe bringing Davey Martinez in as the manager, who's been with Joe Madden for all this time, maybe that is how that works out, and they overcome that flaw at the end. But I think that you're going to see the Los Angeles Dodgers kind of fall back a little bit. I think it's really hard for a team that had a lot of breakout rookie players last year to duplicate what they have done. I also think that their pitching staff performed very well as a group last year, but really Alex Wood, he was amazing. And I don't think he's that amazing pitcher that he showed to be last year. So I think they're going to fall back. That doesn't mean that they're not going to win the division, because I think they will. But I do think that you're going to see San Francisco play a lot better. I think Arizona's right there. And I think that the team that's going to get hurt from the move from San Francisco getting better is Colorado. I don't think Colorado improved themselves. I think they're going to go the other way. So when it comes to the wild card there, you're looking at one of those teams that are going to come out of the West. And then, I think, and one of my personal favorite plays too, and we'll talk about this in a minute for season wins, I think the St. Louis Cardinals are going to surprise a lot of people. I think that the Milwaukee Brewers are going to surprise some people by going the opposite direction of what everybody anticipates them to do. So I think when you're starting to look at kind of how this is going to break down in the National League, I would expect one of the teams to, and I think it's going to be Arizona. I think Arizona comes out of the West, and I think that St. Louis comes out of the Central, and then those will be your two wild card teams. But I think there's going to be a race in there too, because Milwaukee, even though I told you they're going to go down, they're going to be competitive in that. And I also kind of like what the Mets are doing. I think that they made a great choice in Mickey Callaway as the manager over there. I think he's going to provide a lot of bullpen support and get those pitchers to where they need to be. And then they brought in a couple veteran hitters that can try to hold them over and win some games that last year they lost. So I think the Mets are going to be in the conversation. They got to have a lot of things go right for them to actually make the playoffs. But I wouldn't put it past them. So in terms of what I kind of like in terms of where we go with some of these over under season total wins, some of the teams I like Cleveland. I know the over and the under is kind of high. The one I saw was 94. That's what's in my book is 94. Cleveland over 94 I think is great because in the division each team plays each team 19 times. So Cleveland gets to play Detroit. They get to play the Chicago White Sox and the Kansas City Royals. That's almost 60 games against those teams. They're going to win 2 out of 3 of those games. So they're going to win 40 games just playing those 3 teams. So if you're looking at over 94 wins and there's 160 games, you divide that by we'll take the 40 off, and now you got 120 games left. They got to just be a little bit over 500 to get to that 94 number. And I think that's a pretty safe assumption that that's going to happen. I think that they're going to hit the 100 mark. So I don't think there's any issue with Cleveland and the over. I also like what they're doing out in Oakland. The Oakland A's have some really good hitting talent. I don't think that many people really understand how good Oakland is on offense. So their over is 74.5, and I think they're going to go over that number. I think they're going to win somewhere around 79 to 80 games. I think they're going to fall just short of that 500 mark. I don't like what's going on in the Toronto Blue Jay organization right now. I know they're going to get Aaron Sanchez back, and he's going to pitch, and he should do a lot better than sort of what they threw out there last year. But 81.5 is their number, so they're saying, hey, they got to be 500. And with what's going on with the Red Sox and the Yankees, and plus also they still got to beat Baltimore, even though the pitching's not very good, they can hit. So I still think that Toronto's going to be under the 81.5, and I really don't like what's going on in Detroit at all. I don't like the number. It's 67.5. I've seen it as high as some people thinking they're going to win 70 to almost 78 games. So they would go way over that number. I don't think they're going to do that well. I mean, their pitching staff is not very good. Their bullpen's not very good. They got younger players that they're going to try to put out there, but the younger players aren't as talented as some of the other guys that are rebuilding. And in the National League, I like the under in the Milwaukee Brewers. I like under 84. The reason I like the under is yes, they have some offense, but their offense isn't really explosive. It's you either hit home runs and win the game, or they strike out a lot and they lose the game. What helped them last year was pitching, and if you match up their pitching to what either St. Louis has or what the Chicago Cubs have, or even some of those teams in the West, they don't line up very well. They don't have any dominant ace-type pitchers. They've got good, say, 2, 3, 4 kind of guys that are going to end up trying to hold things down, but they don't have an ace. They need a guy that can go out there and win them 20 games or pretty close to that to stay in it. So I think they're going to be under 84. I think St. Louis goes over 85 or 85.5. And if it's the same kind of thing, they were a team that needed a lot of driving in runs type guys, and Ozuna is one of those guys that's going to do that for them. Their pitching staff is going to get better now that Luke Weaver is going to be there for the full season. So I like what St. Louis is doing. And the Colorado Rockies, they just didn't do anything to help themselves. They didn't add basically anything except in the bullpen, and they did a lot better job of adding in the bullpen. But I really think they're going to struggle. So under 82.5 I have for Colorado. And again, I don't like what Cincinnati's doing. I think under 73.5 for Cincinnati is one of my good season wins type bets. So just for now, that was just a brief update, just talking about the baseball season getting started, and wanted to say hello. Don't forget, I got a 130-page free baseball preview. Just go to my Twitter and DM me, and you can get it for free. My Twitter handle is at C2C Scott, SCOTT, Webb, WEBB. Thanks, guys. Until next time, I will talk to you later. And as always, good luck.